March 30, 2020. Okay, I'm just going to start at some point and start going forward. So working at uh, the county hospital, uh, my brother Larry, I believe, has actually landed a job in Riverside as director of respiratory therapy. Good on him. And I might have that a little bit out of place as far as exactly when that happened, but at some point that does happen. My oldest brother Neal, is teaching some of the courses in the respiratory therapy program, and during that time, I mean, me and Larry, we were really active with the pinball, the racquetball. We were flying the hang gliders, and then he goes and he buys also a sailboat, a Hobie Cat 14, and man, he becomes an avid sailor. So that's going on. And I think what didn't take him too long, and he goes, this 14 footer isn't suited for two people, because he'd like to take us for a ride, and it just kind of almost sink the thing. And so he got the 16 footer. That way, you got the mainsail, the jib. You're going to have the extra sailor to handle the jib, although Larry could handle the whole big boat all by himself in significant winds. He was a good sailor, and frequented down to this lake south of San Bernardino. I don't know, some down below Paris. I think it was Vale Lake, and yeah, pretty sure that was the name of it. So that was a pretty common thing. We'd start heading down that way to go sailing with him, and at some point Neal even bought a monohull. I don't know, it was maybe like a 20 footer or something like that, and I think he even had it at the lake there a couple of times. But the Hobie Cats made a little more sense. You could launch them right from the beach real easily, and that take a monohull with a dagger board, a little bit more complicated to get it around and get it into the water and all of that. Plus, it wasn't as fun as the Hobies. In the Hobies, you got wet and sometimes you got flipped over, and you wouldn't want to do that in your monohull. So we're having a good time with that. And let's see. So I'm in the registry program, um, and got an interesting group of people. There was one character in there that he was smart, but he was way beyond that too. We would play these games. I don't know how we found out that he had this ability that we could just throw numbers at him. We'd say, okay, take 97, multiply it by 12. Oh, that's and just right off his head with instantly. And there's someone else there still punching it in on the calculator. And we had calculators that had just come out. I would not have survived college if the handheld calculator hadn't come out at that time. But this guy, and then we would do the, other people throw out these complicated, divided by this, carry the, and square root, throwing all these things, and he would just nail it. And I'm asking him, what are you doing in respiratory therapy? You need to be someplace doing something. But that. So uh, also, Dr. Shepard. He's an anesthesiologist, so he was teaching the pharmacology part for the respiratory therapy program, and the classroom for him was up in this dingy room in third story of the abandoned part of the St. Bernardine's, older part of the building, and we'd go up there and listen to him drone on. He was real slow talking, and he would sit there at the chalkboard, and sometimes his chalk would just kind of freeze on the board while he's trying to think. then they would start. And he'd stand there and he'd be so proud when he finished out some equation. He'd kind of raise up on his toes and rock back and forth. And we all started kind of making fun of that a little bit, not in front of him, although I did get caught once. He walked in and the class, most of the kids were there, and I was playing Dr. Shepard. I'm up there scribbling on the chalkboard, rocking on my heels and stuff. And he walks in and he goes, "Very funny, Mike." Yeah, we'll see. and and then I really liked the guy. He was funny, not in a telling jokes kind of way, just in the way he carried himself and talked and all. It was funny. His tests were interesting. We've never had to really do anything that was like essays or anything like that. It was just like select the best answer, A, B, C, or D. And so here'd be a question: how would this drug react with this situation? Blah 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 blah. And then we'd give you the four choices. And I learned real quickly after reviewing a couple of tests afterwards. I go, I can improve my grade by 1 or 2 points just by always picking the longer answer. If I don't know what the answer is, just pick the longer answer, because more than likely that's going to be the answer. Because it was just, he probably wasn't even thinking about it, but he would absentmindedly just make sure you understand what this, here's this, boy, I'm really going to make sure that you don't miss this. Here's this long answer explaining that this is the correct answer. And so when I figured that out, I spread that around to our little group, and I go, oh man, because I showed them the proof. I said, look at it, just look at it. And that helped some of us get through the class a little easier. And a lot of the stuff was so off the charts as far as anything that we needed to know, but there it was. And then there was one day we're all up there, and he comes up and he says, "Seems to be kind of hot in here. Would one of you guys open a window?" And so whoever goes and he pulls this handle, shoves the window, and the whole window just goes. There was no hinges. It just goes 3 stories down, lands right in the patio of the nuns' convent. And they heard the crash, and after the class was dismissed, I guess they wanted to talk to Dr. Shepard about what had happened up there. And he didn't fess up that it was just an accident from a faulty window. He just blamed it on one of the kids, shoved the window out. It was just horrid. I kind of lost a little to a lot of respect for Dr. Shepard. But yeah, good guy other than that. um, yeah, so took a job at St. Bernardine's, probably just got burned out with some of the tomfoolery that the director of respiratory therapy over at the county hospital was doing. And shoot, here's this other hospital just a mile away. So I went and applied and got the job there. We were in demand. Apparently, nobody had any problem getting a job. But let me go back a bit. A couple of other interesting stories related to the schooling there for the registry program. There was a gal in the class, name of Myrna something. Myrna. I'm just going to call her Myrna. I have forgotten her last name. I'm sorry, Myrna. Um, And so she'd be in the class, me, my other brother, Neal, teaching the class, and we were planning a trip to Disneyland. And I think the idea, I would have my Susie, Larry would have his wife Cheryl, and we wanted Neal to go, but we wanted to hook him up with somebody. And so we invited Myrna without her knowing that, you know, we were trying to hook her up with somebody. We invited Neal, not telling him that we were planning to try to hook him up with somebody. So we head on down. I don't know what kind of vehicle, whether it took two vehicles to get to, we had 6 people. And so probably had to take two vehicles. I don't know what happened there, but we get there to Disneyland, and I tell you what, all it takes is one trip on the Matterhorn, and you're going to fall in love. If not, it's a small, small world after all. But so the Matterhorn, if you've never been on it, decent roller coaster. I've ridden scarier ones, but um, it's a theme, and you get on it. And so if it's a guy and a gal, the guy gets in first, and then the gal is in front, and you got your legs kind of around her, and then at some point she's going to be probably leaning back against you, screaming her head off. But all it takes is that one trip. You're in love. You ride the Matterhorn, and you're in love. That's it. Um, so they became a thing, and I'll just gonna go ahead and do the spoiler. Yeah, eventually, and I can't remember when or where, but they got married. Probably wasn't a big deal wedding. Maybe just went down and signed the papers. Blibbity blabbity. Yeah, you're married. Don't know. I don't remember going to their wedding. Um, there was also this other gal in the respiratory therapy program, and she wore a turban. She was a very, kind of a dark skin complexion, and I presumed that the turban was some type of religious requirement. Shouldn't be a problem, right? And the the direct respiratory therapy there at the county hospital, as well as him being the instructor, and the direct respiratory therapy at St. Bernardine's being an instructor. These two dogs, they had it out for the girls. They made most of them cry before the year was over. That was their objective. And later I'll make more mention of the and I wish I could remember her name, because she's a real nice gal. I later found out the religion was a Sikh religion from I think originated from India, and kind of explains all of that. Um, but so here, Larry's going down sailing almost every weekend. He has become a sailor. And then this direct respiratory therapy at the county hospital, apparently he goes down to that lake, and I can't remember whether he had a regular boat or sailed or what, but he made it clear. He says, me and my wife are going to Vale Lake this weekend. We don't want any of you Kelseys and your gang showing up there on that lake and spoiling it for us. And he was dead serious. He says, if you do, it'll be your job. So what did we do? We went sailing at Vale Lake. And the most he saw of us was just in passing, two ships passing in the night. What could go wrong? Maybe I don't know. I can't remember. Maybe I got fired over that, and then ended up going to county hospital. But at least I did not like this man at all. I didn't like the next man at the St. Bernardine's, but he didn't pull that kind of crap, that's for sure. um, so yeah, so take it to St. Bernardine's, and overall, much saner hospital as far as county hospital was there. They took the worst stuff in. I told you all the crazy things that I saw, or some crazy things, and some of the crazy things that happened while I worked there, patient related. And St. Bernardine's Catholic Hospital, a little more straight laced. County's taking all the crazy stuff, and we're just we've got the cardiac surgeries going on, and a real developed respiratory therapy department with a lot of stuff going on. And the gal, wish I could remember her name, but the gal that wore the turban, she ended up getting a job there at the Catholic hospital. I feel, well, that's interesting that the Catholics were saw fit that, hey, you know, we're not going to let this person's religion or whatever uh, conflict with that. And although I don't know that they played much of a role in, who gets to do what, who gets to get hired, and that kind of thing. So it's kind of the director of respiratory therapy there. You do an interview and you get hired. But at some point, he went after this gal for no other reason, just for spite. Uh, and he started telling her that people are complaining about your headdress, and it's against the policy, to wear that. However, they explained it to her. It's ridiculous. And she was just, really fraught. She didn't want to lose her job. And, oh, yeah. Well, my brother Neal, while he was actually involved with teaching in the program, these two characters just pulling all this kind of, not only that kind of stuff, but they were also robbing from the school and from the hospitals, because they were double timing as far as being educators. They were saying, well, we're educating, but they were sitting there being director of the respiratory therapy department at the same time. And there's a lot of weird stuff going on, and Neal really just started tabulating and formulating this huge pile that he eventually turned in. And yeah, they lost their jobs over it. But back to the turban thing, this, because this was part of it too. So she's being threatened that she would lose her job over that. So I think probably Neal contacted the local Sikh. I don't know if they probably don't call it a church. I don't know what they would call it, but their gathering place for worship. Told them what's going on, and if they would like to come in and explain to this director of respiratory therapy that this is against the law, what they're trying to do to this girl. And it just so happened I was there the day that they showed up. Now here's the scene. Here's the director of respiratory therapy in his little glass office there, and in walks these two dudes. If you want to talk about some turbans, these dude had twice the turban. They wore these ornate robes with all kinds of I don't know, cords and stuff hanging, and they were carrying 4-foot swords that were sheathed, but they've got these swords affixed to their hips. Impressive looking dudes, big beards. And someone goes and knocks on the director's door. You got a couple of guys want to visit with you out here. And I'm kind of backing away, but I'm peeking around the corner, and I mean, he was shaking in his boots because they're all I can see is they're pointing at him and telling him, and then it's, and he's nodding his head, okay, everything's good, shake hands, and all was good. And she had a free ride from then on out. Never would there be a problem. So that was pretty cool. You got to give him some respect there. Um, so yeah, I'm going to spend just a minute, couple minutes longer here. There was a really good joke that happened at the hospital there. So I'm working in the post-op cardiac care ICU. Had about 10 beds, but it was a slow night. I think we had maybe a couple of patients on post-op ventilators or something like that. Nurses are there. Slow night. And so I went down for some equipment or something, and here's one of my fellow respiratory therapists. He says, "Hey, look at this." He pulls out of his pocket. He's got one of those rubber chickens, some joke plucked rubber chickens. And I go, "Okay, what are you going to do with it?" He says, "I don't know, man. We need to do something with this." And this guy just loved to be pulling pranks on people and stuff. And I said, "Bring him up to ICU. Let's, we'll put him in a bed." And so we go up there and we, kind of go in like we're checking some equipment, and we get that, pull the sheet down. We lay the chicken under there. Got his little head. I mean, they're about that long, right? And he's got his little head laying on the pillow. We got the sheet pulled up to about here on his breast. And we we said, "Hey, you need to come and check on patient in number 2." And they said, "There's nobody in number 2." I said, "You better check on your patient in number 2." And so they go and oh my God, they're cracking up. They said, that looks funny. That's funny. Okay, guys, that's funny. We got to give you that. Then see what happened first. I think the nurses jumped in. They said, "Well, we might as well hook up an IV on him." So they brought in a bottle with the tube, and they put a little needle in one of his wings. And oh gosh, and they set up the EKG leads on the little chicken's breasts, hooked him up to the monitor, and they put a Foley catheter in him. And then they said, "He's not looking good. You guys need to put him on a ventilator." And I got looking at him, and I think this will work. So we brought in it's probably like an MA1 or something, and it's an adult ventilator, but you can, put it way down low. And so we intubated him with an about an 8 millimeter, I think, endotracheal tube. Was a perfect fit into the throat when we inflated the cuff that seals it off, so it kind of secures it in there and doesn't allow air that you're trying to blow in to just blow past the tube. So we put it on there. We tuned in a little small volume, and it was like this rubber chicken just getting ventilated well. And so, I mean, we had everything going for him. It was great. It was a slow night. And then we hear the automatic doors open. Oh, someone coming in, not a big deal. Oh my God, it's the director of cardiological surgery, cardiac surgery. And he's coming down the hallway. He's at number 8, number 7, and he's got his clipboard. And I'm going, "I've never seen him here at night." They're going, "Well, whatever." We're all sitting there because we're going, he's going to go past room number 2, and he'd look in on the patient, and he'd kind of make a few notes, and so he's asking her, "How's your night?" "It's been okay, yeah, slow." And then he walks and he looks in at number 2. Not that he would have a patient there, but he's just looking at every room to see if there's some other, maybe a patient there that might interest him, I guess. "Hey, you need a heart surgery?" So he looks in there, And he does this double take that was just perfect. He can't believe what he's seeing. Then he looks over at the nurse's desk and me sitting there, and he says, "Really slow night, eh?" He said, "Well, we just needed to practice an emergency setup." He says, "Yeah, yeah, okay." Have a good night. And that it was a crack up. We just sat there and cracked up after that. It was just great. So yeah, sometimes the stress of working in high stress situations kind of leads to this kind of stuff happening. And yeah, indeed, it was kind of a good exercise. They all got to, okay, roll in this cart, and we got to sit in that. And yeah, that's my story. It was good practice. All right, well, y'all have a dandy, stay safe, and check you later.